podcast, where our Soulstrology comes forward to help you manage your everyday life, with forecasts and deep dives on natal charts and queer perspectives on the planets, transits, and more. A group discussion about upcoming transits with tips on how to read these transits in your own chart. Hollis offers years of wisdom and natal chart knowledge with Bright Hawk's positive perspective and LeKross's inquiry. We offer the complete queer astrology experience. Welcome to RainbowSoul. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, and commenting and reviewing. You can also learn where else RainbowSoul is offered on our website at RainbowSoul.show.
Welcome. welcome everyone. Welcome to RainbowSoul Soulstrology forecast. We are here with you today, and we are hoping to help you understand what's happening with the planets. And I'm Hollis Taylor, so you can easily book with me astrology readings or anything else like that, synastry or death chart readings, which is for not to predict your death. I'm not interested in doing that. But what I do is if someone has passed in your life, I help you understand their passing, why they died, or what the deeper meaning of that is, and maybe especially for suicides and murders, for people that what they were going through in that moment. Okay, because astrology will reveal what was going on for them in that moment. And so I take a look at that. Plus, I add your synastry chart, and we try to look at your past lives and your future lives together. It's a very special type of reading. If you're a person that does those kinds of readings, reach out to me. I want to know, because I have not met another astrologer that offers the same reading. I'm the only one that I know of. Anyway.
And Hollis does an amazing reading, I have to say. It's a great gift to give yourself or someone else in your life. Hi there, I'm Bright Hawk. You can always learn more about me at brighthawkproductions.com. I'm an author, an astrologer, an artist, musician, storyteller. I think I got it all in there. And welcome to our friend.
Hi, I'm LeKross Ortiz, jack of all trades. I kind of know a little bit of everything and nothing at all. So,
you know a lot, man.
Yes, you could just say I'm a avid student, philosopher. I am the creator of the Fool's Journey Color Journal and working on couple of other things, podcast and whatnot. So you can find me on Spotify, on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram.
Fantastic. And we're glad you're here, LeKross. And, I thoroughly and completely and wholly believe that every single person on planet Earth has special gifts. And if your gift is to learn a whole bunch of different stuff, well, then that's a gift. Because some people focus on one thing and that's their gift, and they don't know much about anything else other than that one thing. So, and I think that all of us have a special gift, and I appreciate your gift, Bright Hawk, with music and all of your positivity and your moon wisdom.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, my friends, I want to encourage you to take a little moment here to take a deep breath and relax and try to get centered so that you can hear the truth of the planets. And take a few deep breaths. And just center yourself, get yourself centered in your seat, your feet on the floor. Feel yourself connected to the earth and connected to the universe. You are amongst many, connected to the universe. We are natural, earthling beings. And as we connect ourselves to the universe, I encourage you to feel yourself out in outer space, just sort of floating. And there seems to be something attracting you, pulling you forward, the way gravity holds you down. But as you realize what's pulling you forward is the planet Venus. Venus represents the femininity on planet Earth. And as you circle around Venus, imagery of the female symbology is imprinted in your mind. Everybody has a little Venus in them. And this is where we attract. And when you look for that Venus symbol in your chart, you recognize that this is where you attract. This is who you attract. And this is how you attract. This is your love language. And if you were born with Venus and Leo, your love language is to praise. Your love language is to lift up, to lead in a way where you pull others up. And with Venus and Leo, you will attract those that need that lifting, that are attracted to that maybe also have a love language that speaks that. Maybe they have Moon in Leo or Mars. Something that helps them feel attracted to you. Venus and Leo is focused on being integrous. While they like to be in the spotlight, they don't want to hog it. They want to share it with you. And Venus in Leo is transiting in the sky, this time in the here and now for all of us. Reminding us of who we attract, showing us who we lift up, and how we lead. Bringing forth our most integrous, leading abilities, helping us learn how to lift others up. Venus in Leo has that big lion heart, activating and attracting those big lion hearts within us. Prideful, loving, and full. Integrous and fierce. Strong and gracefully gentle. as you are pulled away by the moon's orbit from the planet Venus, you recognize how this planet speaks to you in your own life, how this planet speaks to your love, to what you love, your love language, and how you express love and what you attract. Resources of money and love. And as you pull back from Venus, back into the forever of the universe and how it seems to go on forever in the blackness, you are left with that big, prideful, loving heart. Reminded of what you love most. As you take a deep breath, come back into your body, come back into your center, come back and feel your feet on the floor. Feel that strong heart in your chest, beating with pride and love, that fierce love. Take another deep breath and wiggle your toes and your fingers. Open your eyes and come back into the presence of here and now. Woohoo! Thank you. It's beautiful.
Thank you. That was beautiful. It was a beautiful journey.
Well, I hope that works for everyone out there, hoping to help you more deeply understand the planets. Venus would be called one of our personal planets, and that's because it's very personal. It's really your love language, regardless of where it is, whatever sign it's in and whatever house it's in, it's how you will express.
And it will always be either in the same sign as your sun sign or only one sign over. It'll never be more than that because it travels so close to the sun. So your sun, Venus, Mercury, they're always going to be either in the same house or right next door to each other.
Mine are right next door, yeah. Mercury in Libra and then the sun in Virgo.
Right. Just the other side or the
yeah. It's on the other side.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And always take a look. Venus is very simple to find. It's simply the female symbol with the circle and the plus sign at the bottom. And you can find that in your chart. You want to know where your Venus is if relationships are important to you, whether you're in one or you're wanting to be in one, or even if you're trying to understand why you're having a hard time with it or not or whatever. One of the things is that sometimes Venus goes retrograde, and sometimes I notice that speaks to, if you were born with Venus retrograde, it speaks a lot to your self-esteem. It will speak a lot to how you feel about yourself, maybe the way you grew up. I was born with Venus in retrograde, and I suffered a lot of trauma, and I certainly had a self-esteem issue for the first 20 years of my life. Now, the good thing is that in a progressed chart, which is how you change over time, It sort of, when we look at your progressed chart, it's basically moves the planets based on how old you are. Okay, so as you age and you get past your Saturn returns, Venus will shift. And so if you were born with it retrograde, you'll probably notice that, oh, well, I've overcome a lot of those self-esteem issues. I've dealt with a lot of them. I'm better about loving myself now. That's really what I noticed. The biggest thing about Venus retrograde is that, so if you have it retrograde, that's the self-esteem problem you may or may not have been born with or developed in your childhood. And by the time you're in your 30s, you'll overcome it and change it. And it will, it might go retrograde again in the chart, in your progress chart, but just know that it's overcomable. It doesn't mean that you're going to forever hate yourself or something like that. That's not what it means. It's just meant to highlight those parts of you. And sometimes I think when I was younger and my Venus was retrograde, and we talk about Venus is what we attract, I would attract toxic people. And this is a common thing that I talk to people about. They feel like they attract toxic people. So what I want to say, the best way to change that is to turn love on yourself. It's not about anything other than your own vibration. So if you find that you're attracting toxic people, just stop dating, stop doing anything or whatever you have to do, and just turn in on yourself and give yourself a lot of love. Spend a lot of time loving yourself, and you will attract the appropriate person at that point. You will stop attracting toxic people. Okay, I just want to address that because it's definitely a Venus retrograde thing as well. I feel like, in our younger age, we might attract toxic people. Okay. So
Interesting. I wonder if the times when we talked about having a broke picker, when people, their ability to pick good people is broke. And I wonder if that was true, when that's happening, if in fact it's because their Venus is retrograde.
Yes, and exactly. And the problem with believing that you have a broken picker or there's something about you that is broken, that you inherently will always attract toxic people, and accepting that about yourself, is that it's not true. It will change over time. You won't always attract those people. You just, for a period of time, might attract those people. So look at the Venus in your chart. If you want to understand love, relationships, who you're attracting, and even your money and resources, especially like for me, it's in my 10th house. So it has a lot to do with the work I do in the world. So if you tend to attract like toxic bosses or toxic coworkers, look at that Venus in the 10th house, okay, or the 11th house or the 6th house, okay, something like that. And that's where you want to pay attention to it. And you just want to, like I said, just apply self-love. The fun thing about astrology is once you get to understand the parts of you that you may not like so much, that you're like, ew, Hollis, now I know why. Okay. And so if that's happening to you, the good news is that there's usually a good way to change it, to shift it for yourself. And you're always progressing. And that's what the progress chart is all about. You're always progressing. Sometimes also I've also seen people with low self-esteem, if the Venus is very afflicted, meaning opposite something, like opposite in the sky to Pluto, or it's in detriment or something. There's some sort of aspect. Venus is in detriment in Virgo. It's in its fall in Virgo, and it's in detriment in Aries and Scorpio. Okay. And I have witnessed people with Venus and Scorpio a lot, because I tend to attract them, because that's also my rising sign. Okay. So your rising sign is also who you attract. And so I tend to attract, right? Okay. Venus and Scorpio. And if it's retrograde as well, or afflicted, meaning it's in a square or inconjunct or opposite in the sky from a different planet, especially opposite, you'll really need to work a little bit harder at it, but you'll be able to do it. And so what you want to do is you want to try to find where it will go, where it will progress into, and move more towards your progression, or move into something that's less um try to use more of your moon energy to attract, if that's better placed, okay, instead of the Venus. Okay,
Real,
but that's, go ahead.
I just had a question. Like, at what age should you start looking at your progress chart? Now, I know you said about the Saturn return. Is it after the first or after the second, or?
Yes. After the first.
Yeah.
After the first Saturn return, there's major changes. The moon has moved Saturn, and it's not that, and all the progress chart shows us, mostly we just look at personal planets, which would be like Venus, Mars, the moon, and the sun. Okay. And so we look at those 4 basic planets, and sometimes we might look at the nodes too. Okay. And so those changes in the progressed chart will tell us how you've changed. So we kind of do it like a synastry, like we look at your regular natal chart, and then we look at the progress chart on top of it, and we kind of compare the two and go, oh, so I see that you used to really struggle with self-esteem, but now you probably don't, and you're feeling like you know how to compliment others. So like, it took me a while to learn how to compliment others, which is actually a Venus and Leo trait. But because my Venus was retrograde, I also couldn't take a compliment. So I had to learn how to take a compliment, and then it was easier for me to give compliments. Okay? Because it was hard for me to see anyone's plus, because I couldn't even see my own. In my 20s, I would say I was a hot mess. So, and then once I went through my Saturn returns, it really sort of woke up, and I was attracting a lot of toxic people in my 20s, and I was attracting them and not knowing that they were toxic until they were already in my life, and then I was like, right, okay,
I did it again.
yeah. So, and then once I got through my Saturn returns, I started recognizing. So the funny thing about retrograde planets, and this pretty much goes for anyone born with any retrograde planets, while it might propose a challenge early in your life, later on in your life, you will become a master of that. You will become better than a person that was born with it direct. So, for instance, if somebody was born with Venus direct, they might have okay self-esteem. They're okay. Normally, they're mostly okay. But I'll probably be able to manage my self-esteem a little bit better, because I'll become a master of loving myself. Okay. And even to this day, I still sometimes can struggle sometimes. And I think it might be the progressed chart going retrograde again as you get older into your 40s and 50s. Okay. Because it can go, you can start out with it retrograde, then it goes forward, and then it can go retrograde again. But the more it does that, the more your resilience builds up, and the stronger and more masterful you get at it. So if you were born with Mercury in retrograde, you're probably going to master communication. Right, Hawk? Right? Okay. So, yeah. So, and that's kind of what happens like with Jupiter and money and luck. So you may not have the greatest of that in the beginning, but then later you'll learn how to master that.
So one of the things that we look at when we look at our personal birth charts in astrology is that people often say, wow, how do you figure out your life purpose? There's a lot of that points to it in the astrology chart, because sometimes it's where those challenges are. Like Hollis just said, if you have Venus retrograde in Scorpio, we can definitely guarantee that you've had some struggle early on in your life. But it's also going to point to that place of, this is what you're supposed to figure out this time. Your soul set these things up so you would build that muscle. And now you can help others because you've walked the path. So that's a lot of what we look at in astrology, is like, where's the challenges? Because that's part of what you came here to learn. And we often know, oh no, don't challenge me. But we all know that's how we grow. That's how we get strong. And it's, it's like that Chiron thing. It's the thing you didn't ask for by any stretch, that you've been forced to deal. The hand's been dealt. You've got to deal with it, and now you've learned, and now you can help others.
Right.
So that's part of what astrology is endlessly teaching us. And then just about the time you think you've figured something out, another transit happens, or you look at a progress chart, or you take in more about what's happening with synastry, and you're like, whoa, God, I've looked at this 50 times and I never saw that before. Holy moly.
Right.
And that's why it's great to have somebody else like Hollis, for example, read your chart, help you understand not only your core makeup, but then how is it going forward? How is it looking back? What are the things we need to work on? Because we all have work to do here. That's why we're here. Everybody's got a purpose. You have a reason. We're all meaningful. We're all important to the fabric of life. And astrology, I think, really helps point to, and this is where you need to do this time. These challenges were given to you so you would figure this out.
Yeah, so that this time around you can make those upgrades in your soul, right? So that next time maybe you come through with a Venus direct, and next time maybe your Jupiter is retrograde or something, so it'd just be something else. And we all have to learn different things at different times. So we just need to, I feel like we're all learning. We're all on a soul journey. So when you look at your Venus, you should definitely check out if it's retrograde, what sign it's in, what house it's in. And then if it's in any conversations is what I call them. If it's opposite the sky from something else, you want to know that. Mine's in a trine to Chiron, which means I'm meant to overcome my self-esteem issues and become the wounded healer in that way, where I can say, I really understand what it feels like to have low self-esteem. Here's how you can fix it. Here's how you can mend that broken heart. So those are the kinds of things that you want to be looking at, because trines are really easy conversations and sextiles. And so those could be blessings and how things come to you very easily. Okay. And so it could also be like, oh, okay, I can see that my Venus is in a trine to, whatever. And then you can be like, oh, okay. And then that will immediately help you understand what's happening there. Okay. And Mars has more to do with your temperament. Mars is the opposite of Venus. But I say it has a lot to do with relationships, because it's about what drives you to take action. And sometimes action is half of the relationship. So if you don't take action, then the relationship won't happen. And so that's where Mars is. Mars is the assertive. Mars is not the aggressor, but it can be aggressive, but it's also the assertiveness, the one that puts themselves out there. Okay. And those two things, Mars and Venus together in a chart, sometimes I haven't met a person where it didn't apply. Almost everybody I know with Mars and Venus together in the same chart, if they're in like conjunct, they're on top of each other, are gender benders. And they're not always like transgender or cross dressers or whatever like that. Sometimes they're just a person that identifies as cisgender, but they might challenge the gender norms. Okay. They challenge the gender norm in some way. Like they might be a woman that works in a very sort of seen as a masculine job. Okay. And they're just people that just push on the gender boundaries, but sometimes they are also. So if you're seeing Mars and Venus in your chart out there and you're queer, there's one of the aspects that I go, so you're a gender bender, eh? And I've met people that I'm like, oh, I've seen people that even look that way. And it's usually in their first house, Mars and Venus. And they kind of look like a gender bender. They look very androgynous. Yeah. So it's a fascinating little Mars and Venus are very personal and very personable. Okay. All right, my friends. Well, let's take a look at this week's astrology. I like to address the birth chart a little bit because I know a lot of people here are new astrologers. So we just want to help you understand how this all affects your chart, because Venus is going to be doing some dancing in the sky this week. All right, so let's see here. So I'm going to share the, here we are, but I have to do this. Yep. There we go. Perfect. Okay. And then, great. So this is for July 8th through July 14th. And we are moving through July very quickly. Wow, June happened fast. I'm just going to say, did June happen? Okay.
It's gone.
Gemini, man, so fast. Gemini happens so fast. And now we're in July, which is, of course, Cancer season. And there's a lot of good things happening in the sky this week overall. And lots of beautiful conversations between the planets. And, you know, with Venus still in Cancer early in the week, before she leaves Cancer, Venus is going to really speak to you about, especially about your emotions regarding love. So you might feel a little bit of that, oh, I really love my partner, or I really love my home or my garden, or I really love my community. It's probably going to depend on where Cancer is in your chart, and also like what is important to you. So Venus is always having that conversation with you. It just shifts over time. But with a sextile to Mars during early in the week, it's going to be making sure your actions are in relation to what you love, especially in relation to money, resources, and work. Because Cancer's ruled by the moon. Yes, it makes it very emotional, but how are you emotionally connected to your work in the world? Because Mars is in Taurus, and it's actually coming up onto Uranus. And we'll talk about that in a second. But when Mars and Venus are in this conversation, I just feel like you easily come up with, well, I actually want to do this, and you'll figure out how to make the resources to make that happen. Now, of course, Venus is also in a trine. She is in a trine to Neptune. Okay, I was just making sure. Okay, so it's Neptune that she's in a trine to. So Venus in a trine to Neptune is like, but the thing is that Neptune is retrograde. Okay, so Neptune retrograde in Pisces makes me feel like the Neptune is going to be stronger there because it's in its rulership. And it could mean that you may come to the realization of some things. Like there could be a difference in perspective. Like, I actually love it when this happens, especially in relation to work or other things that you put out in the world, or things that you feel very passionately about that are connected to your resources. So I'm just going to say that I think that's really important, because that aspect, the Venus trine, I don't think it will be hard. I just think you might have some realizations about what you love and how that's working for you. And I see that the moon is in Leo right now.
Yeah, and maybe that could be healing because the moon is trine Chiron.
Ah, yes, okay.
So, you know, again, that to me says it could be a healing relationship with yourself or someone you're in relationship with. When the moon is in Leo, of course, it answers to the sun, the ruler of Leo. And the sun right now is in Cancer, so it's kind of behind it. But I think the Leo waxing crescent moon, the energy of the moon is just beginning to build after the new moon. So whatever intention setting you had for this new moon And then the things that can feel fated, where you have to deal with something, whether you want to or not, is the fact that the moon is in conjunct, also known as a quincunx. It's basically that 150 degree. Instead, 180 degrees, of course, is opposite, right? Across the circle from each other. But that 150 degree is also known as an inconjunct or a quincunx. What does that mean? It means fated energy. It means destiny. It means something's going to require. And so, of course, we're talking about the moon, emotions, Saturn, structure. What are you going to do about it? And it's also square Uranus. Those are a little bit on the surprise factor, not seeing something coming and having to deal with it. Hopefully it's not about things breaking, because I see Saturn in there with the square to Uranus, and I just think, ooh, uh-oh.
Yeah, I've already had enough of that with websites
Yeah,
this week.
yeah. So I hope not. The moon likes being in Leo, and of course, Leo is all about making sure everybody's feeling good and being the bright, sunny. Think about the warmth of the sun, But if it's too much of a good thing, it can be too much of a good thing, right? So Leos have that on the positive side. They can really make sure everybody's having fun, everyone feels taken care of, lead in a really integrous way. And on the challenge side of a Leo moon could be arrogance, shortness, impatience, those kind of things, right? So, those are the two sides of a Leo moon for sure. And, we have a little bit of a challenge in these aspects for this one. But at the same time, they can also lead to, whoa, now I see. Now I really see it.
I really think that's going to be a lot of this week. There's 3 minor trines, and so I feel like it's really going to be like, oh, let me stop doing that and do this instead.
I see it now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly.
So just changing up the way you do something, or the way you approach something, or something like that, or even just your perspective, because of that Neptune in retrograde can sometimes kind of kick the reality in your face.
Mhm.
And that's really important, which I think is good. A change in perspective could come together pretty easily and help you take action in relation to that perspective. And it's very destined. It's supposed to happen this way with that Pluto. And Pluto opposite Venus makes me feel like that's an awareness. It's not quite opposite yet. I think it actually comes in opposite later in the week, more exact. With Pluto, you want it to be a little bit more exact. You want it to be, but you can see it's starting to come into
Mhm.
opposite of Pluto. And really, that's just going to push you to make changes for things that are important to you, important in your heart, important about love and what you love and what's important to you. That's all. And with these great, you can see these little triangles. You can kind of draw little blue triangles on the outer edges here in relation to Mercury and Jupiter and the North Node and your destiny. So that's going to have a lot to do with destiny. And Neptune retrograde in Pisces is really, really, really about surprising things that may need to shift. And they're just minor trines. No worries about those are good. They're just not as big as a grand trine, which we have later in the week. But on this day, on Tuesday, those minor trines are really helpful in that they'll help things come together and help us shift in whatever way we need to. And there is a yod pointing at the mood, Bright Hawk.
Oh, indeed there is.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually see that when I put
It's
this
okay.
together.
It's okay. But it's pulling from Neptune and Pluto. And so that makes me think about the changes we need to make, especially in relation to because So your personal planets are like Venus and Mars and Mercury and the sun, right? Okay, and the moon. And then the outer planets, and I think Jupiter is a personal. I always get Jupiter mixed up as a personal planet. I always feel like it's personal,
Yeah.
but it's
It's
not
big.
really.
Think of it as big.
It's very big, but and then there's outer planets, right? Like Uranus and Pluto and Saturn and Neptune. And while those are outer planets and they affect us on our personal level, they more affect the collective. Okay.
Right.
And they're more about the collective. And if you take a look at that, that's Neptune retrograde, which can really be questioning what the truth is, and sometimes creating some illusions around that. Sometimes, like if there's people that are intentionally spreading fake news, they'll intentionally try to spread it more in the Neptune retrograde phase, where they'll, like some people like to say things 3 or more times in order to make you believe them. Um, if you notice politicians doing that, you should pay attention to that, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to repeat a lie numerous times, so they'll just repeat it. They'll repeat the same lie over and over again so that you believe them. Okay? And that's Neptune retrograde. And with the Yod and Pluto in retrograde, you know what that makes me think about? That makes me think about how people are emotionally reacting to the politics right now. Okay, that makes me think about our personal experience, about our, especially in the United States, but maybe in other countries too. I can see this. People in other countries are concerned about where American politics are going, because the president of the United States tends to be one of the most powerful people in the world. And if certain people step up into that, it could be very ugly. And so, whatever your opinion is, but the moon in Virgo is very much, Virgo is about home, right? And so that's what that makes me think about, like how the politics are affecting us emotionally.
At home. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like this is our home, right?
Yeah. So I know astrology has a lot of terminology that sometimes people aren't familiar with. So I just want to say, when we talk about a yod, it's also known as a finger of God. It's these two in conjunctions from Neptune and Pluto. And since Neptune and Pluto are outer planets, therein lies how it affects us all collectively. But it's pointing at the moon, so that becomes personal. People are starting to think about this and thinking about, wow, I'm not sure, And
Right.
because you've got Pluto involved, it's transformation on a level that is really uncomfortable, and transformation that's going to happen one way or another. You have no choice in the matter. We're all on the ride. We are all on the ride. And you want to know where your placements are for these things, but the Neptune, Pluto pointing at the moon, those things point to destiny. Those are fated lines. This is what's being handed to you, and you've just got to deal. And so I feel like I'm repeating myself.
Yeah.
So so the other thing I want to point out is that you're going from a fire element, Leo moon, into the earth element, Virgo moon. And we have a really large in conjunction on Tuesday. So mountain time, it's 6:03 a.m. to almost 2 in the afternoon. Okay. Really big void, which means this is the universe, this is the moon, taking a breath, taking a break. What do you need to do to just recenter, reground, breathe, go for a walk, or take advantage of the fact that it's a void of course moon, and that there's not a lot of drama energy. There's just, the moon is at its weakest when it switches from the one sign, right? In the void of course moon, there's an opportunity to go, oh, this thing that I'm really afraid of because it has a high drama content, I'm going to use this void of course moon to soothe, just have it go away.
So it'd be void in that yod, so it might be less dramatic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where there's this interesting energy where there's not a lot you can do, hands off the wheel especially during a void of course moon. And this lineup, these in conjunctions at the same time. So I'm hoping that means the drama's not great.
But I think people might be reflecting on that
Right.
in the coming week.
Yeah, it could
I
be
mean,
that
people
quiet.
just kind of quietly reflecting to themselves and maybe even taking a rest from it because maybe you've been too focused on the craziness in politics and you're like, and so you got to get out of there,
becoming a lot of
especially for queer
noise.
LGBTQ people. We're very stressed out by politics because right now we are sort of the target of politics. So, in case you haven't noticed,
In the last 2 years, 25 states have passed anti-LGBTQ, or really anti-trans. Really, it's all about anti-trans is the new, craziness. 25 states.
that's
This shit didn't
half the
exist
country.
5 years ago, but in the last 2 years, it's become the ah!
Yeah, I don't know why we've become the target, but we have. Well, I do know, and it has a lot to do with Uranus, which represents queerness. It's in Taurus, and I've talked a lot about this. It's in Taurus, which is very conservative, and Uranus is there, and Uranus is very revolutionary. So Taurus tends to kind of squash the revolution, and that's what's happening right now. Hopefully, it will all end as Uranus comes out of Taurus, and I'm not really sure about when that is, but it's not anytime soon. Okay. So, and as Uranus gets to the end of those degrees, it will deliver its last messages. As it starts to deliver that over in the next few years, Uranus will start to deliver stuff about the gender revolution, and it will start to deliver why it's important. I believe that the universe will teach us all that why it's important that we don't have such strong boundaries on gender. Okay. So why the binary is kind of harmful to the human race rather than helpful. But I understand the conservatives will, are going to. It's just part of what's happening right now, and I know that's pretty uncomfortable. But I just want to say that the politics right now, I think, are sort of like stressing us out. So here's the time that you can take a little break from that on Tuesday. This looks like most of Tuesday. Maybe just shut the TV off, shut the media off.
And it's really good if you check for the void of course moon times for your area.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's several different places on the internet.
Okay. And on Wednesday, we have a lot of trines happening, a lot of great things happening. I do love that Uranus is starting to come into a trine to Pluto, which makes me think that eventually transgender people will start to win. We will start to see changes in the politics. We still will start seeing a shift. And, I do notice there's a lot of trines here on this day, but less like minor trines. There's a lot of trines and sextiles, and it looks like the moon is opposite Saturn that day.
And square Jupiter. Yeah. So not terribly easy aspects for the moon in Virgo. Jupiter might want some business done, and with Jupiter and Gemini, you might have to do it twice. The moon opposite Saturn, you might not feel great about it.
Having to do something twice can sometimes be frustrating, eh? And if that's the worst thing that happens on Wednesday, well, we'll all be blessed. So,
and always remember, usually the second time is better. You usually do it better the second time, even though it's frustrating and you're pissed the whole time. You're like, I really didn't want to do this twice. I want to do this once.
But now I have to do it again. Right.
That is reality.
But the nice thing is most of the week is a lot of trines and a lot of sextiles. So it's a really positive week. And I really love
you have a grand trine in Earth on what this is Thursday.
Yeah, I really love this grand trine in Earth on Thursday. It looks really promising. I feel really good about The only thing that worries me a little bit is that Mars coming up into Uranus, but hopefully since it's in a grand trine, it will be positive. Thursday is probably the best day in regards to that.
Yeah, and now you also have that pretty much lined up opposition of Venus and Pluto. That'll happen for several days. So, so there could be things that are transforming. Venus represents not just relationships, but the things we value.
Mm-hmm.
And so
money falls into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Venus across from Pluto, Venus is also, if you notice, moved into Leo. So it's directly across, it's within 1 degree of being in opposition to Pluto. So this is when it will be the strongest. I feel like since there's a grand trine in the sky with Mars and the moon and Pluto, you might realize, oh shit, that's not going to work. But you'll be able to rectify it pretty easily. But in relation to resources, you might lose a little bit. Okay. So it's usually going to be also with oppositions. It's usually one or the other. So it's either Venus and Leo going forward, helping others, or you might have to reflect backwards because Pluto's retrograde. It's opposite Pluto. So it's either one or the other in an opposition. And it's sometimes hard to balance. And so what you want to do is work towards the balance. But Venus and Leo is about lifting up others and being in integrity, leadership, and things that you value. And then Pluto retrograde in Aquarius is really about change, revolutionary change, spirituality, but it's going backwards. So it tends to be inner reflecting. So maybe you still are spending a little time reflecting on something. How do I really change this? Is this really going to work? Is this too revolutionary? I have that problem. Is this too revolutionary for right now? That's me. And, Pluto in Aquarius is also about technology. Aquarius tends to rule like modern technology, like AI and things like that. So we might want to be paying attention to that. And it can also have to do with storms. Pluto in Aquarius like that, and it's opposite Venus. So hopefully there won't be any major storms, but it could make relation to especially storms that involve wind and water. Okay. So that's like hurricanes and things like that.
Right. Well, when the moon is
But there's a trine, so it should come together easily.
Yeah.
It could be a challenge, but it'll come together in the end.
And grand trines and Earth tend to be very, very wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
They're lovely. They're really lovely things. When the moon is in Virgo, of course, it answers to Mercury. And again, Mercury sort of in the rear view mirror in Leo. And the main thing is that you've really got this beautiful trine energy going on. Yeah, you have some oppositions. Yeah, Mars-Uranus conjunction is going to have, keep perfecting over the next week. Life has changed.
Yeah.
Surprises happen.
Yeah.
So my affirmation is always, I'm willing to be delightfully surprised by how sweet this life can be. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to be delightfully surprised by how sweet this life can be. Just focus the universe. Yeah, we have surprises. Let's make them delightful surprises. Why live out Murphy's Law when you can live out your own law of delightful surprises? Mm-hmm. I'm willing to be delightfully surprised. So that's possible for the next, I don't know how many days, but it'll probably be for more than a week, the Mars-Uranus conjunction. And we usually talk about the conjunctions being the number of degrees between those planets. Perfected is when they're at the same degree, but usually, depending on which planets they are, 5 degrees on either side, a 10-degree orb, but not more than that.
Mm-hmm. And the trine with, the good news is that Uranus is in a trine to Pluto. So that tells me that whatever changes are happening, even if they're sudden or come out of nowhere, they're supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And so Friday, that trine starts to get stronger and even more important as Mars and Uranus come together. And with Jupiter in a trine to the south node exactly at 10 degrees, um, that is also about letting go of things that may have been wrong in the past and like sort of making things right, like sort of making things better in your life, making things like, oh, yeah, I need to stop doing that. So I'm going to do this, making personal shifts in your life. Pay attention to where Libra, where the South Node in Libra is. What house is it in your chart? Where does Libra fall in your chart? That will help you understand exactly what area of life Jupiter will affect. But it is in a trine, a perfect trine on this day. So I feel like that's really excellent. So whatever that has to do with, um, depending on what house it's in. And with Venus, Venus is in Leo, so should definitely pay attention to Thursday, Friday. Where is Leo in your chart? Find out what house it's in, and that will tell you how Venus is going to affect you. I know for me, it's in my 10th house, so that's going to be career. You can easily look up the meaning of the houses. Um, it will have a lot to do with what I offer the world. I already knew that. But also it could be like the 12th house. It could be like, and what's happening in my life that's already happening. It's already happening to me. The 12th house is things that are hidden, but it can also have a lot to do with institutions. Um, and it can have a lot to do with like, the 12th house is also like psychic abilities and things like that. So if Venus moves into there, it could really enhance your connection to the other side or your connection to your spirit guides or something like that. In the first house, it may have a lot to do with your identity or your physicality, maybe your health. Maybe you learn to love yourself more, or maybe you learn to look in the mirror and smile, right? Second house, probably going to have to do with money because Venus rules money and Venus rules the second house. And so that's probably going to have something to do with money or values or the things that your resources. In the third house, it's going to be more about communication, the people directly around you, like your community, your neighbors, cousins, siblings. And then in the fourth house, it's going to be about your parents or your house of origin or your home of origin or your hometown, or sometimes the place, your house, the place you live. If Leo is in the fifth house, if it rules the fifth house, then that's going to be about creativity, very, very creative. It could also bring forth romance, especially, and children and your connection to children. In the sixth house, it's more about your health and your day to day life and what you're doing on a day to day. So you might notice a shift in that way. In the seventh house, it's going to be relationships. So, how is Venus affecting your relationships? She could just make you fall in love with your partner more, or yes, you could meet a new person. Absolutely. I would be excited if you are single and hoping to meet the right person and Venus enters your seventh house. Yes, be excited. Okay. And be open. Just stay open. Don't be too eager because Venus attracts. So who will you attract? The person will come to you. Okay. And so just allow yourself to be open and available. So go out, go have a cup of coffee. If you're not well, I don't like to go out and drink and party. Well, go to a social event or just go out and have a cup of coffee and you might be delightfully surprised, as Bright Hawk likes to say. In the eighth house, if Venus enters your eighth house of Leo, then you're going to want to be paying attention to your own self-esteem, your own feeling about yourself, what's important, your shadow, and even magic, witchcraft, and things that are taboo, sex, death, and taxes. Okay, but if Venus is going to bless those areas. It's going to bring in an attracting energy that feels good for you. In the ninth house, it's going to be more about spirituality or learning and education, sometimes also justice. So if you're in a court or something like that and Venus enters the 9th house in Leo, well, congratulations, you're probably going to win that court case. Okay. Things like that. So justice will be served, usually if Venus is entering your 9th house, especially in Leo. It's going to be like, yeah, Leo is high integrity. So whoever the high integrity is, that's where it's probably going to. Yeah. So that's just the quick house system, just to let you know, because Venus is moving in there Thursday, Friday, and that's the areas of your life it may affect. If it's at the very top of your chart, it's definitely about what you offer the world, okay? Even if it's in the 9th house, but it's on that arrow that points to the top of your chart, that's your MC, and that's what you offer the world, even if it's in the 9th house, okay? But you might be a spiritual person. So like I have Saturn up there, that arrow up there, and I have a spiritual business, right? Okay. So it still might like call to education or spirituality, but it will be what you offer the world. So and if it's over on the left-hand side of that arrow over there, that's your rising sign. So yeah, that's going to affect who you attract and who you're attracted to. So it's going to really push you towards something. Yeah. So those points are important. I just wanted to point them out to you. And do we have a void? Oh, the void moon's not too
11th
long.
house is
Huh?
friends, and 12th house is the
Yeah.
inner house. Did you get?
Yeah, I did those.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, I didn't do the
11th.
11th. I did the 10th, but I think I might have forgot the 11th.
10th, I think.
No, I did the 12th definitely, because
Okay,
I said that
sorry.
was about psychic abilities.
Okay.
But the 11th house is more about like the people around you, your friends, and also like your boss. You may attract a great person, a great mentor or leader or something like that in the 11th house.
There you go.
Yeah, or someone that thinks highly of you anyway. And I see that the moon is only void for
just a very brief period of time early in the morning. Most of us will be sleeping, hopefully.
11 minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll be resting
so
anyway.
Sometimes the voids are large and sometimes they're just barely noticeable. This is in that you'll barely notice it kind of stage.
Okay.
But over the weekend, you'll get another big one.
Okay. Well, on Saturday, it looks like we continue with a lot of trines, but now we're starting to get really strong oppositions. Those oppositions are starting to get stronger, although Venus is starting to move out of the opposition with Pluto, which is good, but another day or so there just to make sure you got the point. And now, look, we have a Yod now pointing at that Saturn, which makes me think about the system because it's in Pisces, because Saturn represents the system like our government. But it's pulling from the personal planets of Mercury and the moon.
Well,
so
what I would say about that is note that the sun has been trining Saturn for weeks.
Okay.
And it still is.
Okay.
So that to me feels like the counterbalance. Sun is a very strong, bright, obviously powerful energy. So that has been happening. We haven't talked a lot about the sun in trine Cancer. Sun in Cancer trine Saturn, but it is it's such a sweet thing you don't even notice it.
Okay. Because everything comes together really well in a trine, and that's why we don't notice it, right? So yeah. So, and I guess the sun, it's about us educating ourselves too, maybe because of the Cancer education and in relation to the system. Like maybe we shouldn't be doing it this way.
Mm-hmm.
But also recognizing changes that need to happen.
Yeah, because when the moon is in its first quarter, it's in a square to the sun. So how we feel about it, again, there might be a little bit of do I want to think about this differently because of that square?
Yeah.
And it's in a T square with the sun. So opposite side of the sky for the moon and the south node is Chiron. And Chiron is always going to try to point us towards our healing, how to be a better person, how to be a better human, how to move on from whatever we need to move on from, smarter, better, wiser, stronger, healthier.
Especially our social situations and probably communicating about what we think about what's happening in our system right now.
I would imagine so.
I would
Yeah.
imagine that's part of the, like maybe we've learned something from the last time we really had a split in our culture where people in the United States in particular were like disowning family members because of some politicians.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say that while I know that you can feel very passionately about that, and I feel very passionately about it as well, I feel it's more important to love your children and your people that you normally would love, and just because you disagree with their politics, I say those assholes in politicians, I won't use any names, those assholes in politicians don't deserve the relationship that I have with my child, my whatever, insert person here. Okay, so I'm just going to say that, and because Saturn's in Pisces with Mercury there in conjunct.
Yeah, and sextile Mercury is going to make it easier to have those conversations.
Gosh, I hope we can have those conversations without
really
disowning each other.
Whatnot. And then the big deal on the weekend is there's another really big void of course moon from Saturday night into Sunday afternoon.
Oh my gosh.
So like Sunday morning, take time off.
Chill out with your family and friends. Hopefully there won't be any drama at all because the moon will be void. Right. So maybe you're right. Maybe we'll just learn how to have that conversation better than we did before. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's what you really can do in a void of course moon that I really actually appreciate with it. That our travel, we did travel during a void of course moon, and there was just no drama.
Just no drama.
Just like da da da.
It just happened. It just unfolded very easily. Yeah.
So I'm really paying attention to these voids on Sunday for sure. Really take advantage of that.
Okay. Yeah. Saturday, you mean, and then Sunday it looks like it's all day until
Saturday night into Sunday
okay,
afternoon.
So it's a great time to hang out with people that you love, and or just take a rest or take a break, and enjoy all these trines. All those blue lines in the sky are things that will come together very easily. So you'll probably notice a lot of great things coming together pretty easily. And while there are some challenges, of course, especially with our system and things like that, sort of happening in the background to stress us out, I still think that we'll mostly this week be enjoying mostly trines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so and I think the challenges will be minimal, which I'm happy to hear.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear after my website was hacked and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that.
It's okay.
On Sunday, the moon is in a T-square with the sun, and Venus, sorry. It'll move between the two of them.
But it's void, so I think it'll be less dramatic.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going too.
All the difficult aspects are in a void this week.
Yeah.
So I feel like we won't notice them that much.
Yeah.
While difficult things may happen, they'll sort of happen in the background where most of our things will be very positive this week. We'll mostly notice, oh, well, this is coming together really easily for me. I mean, it was a challenge, for me recently, some hackers hacked my website. And it was challenging. It was a pain in the ass. It took me like a day or so to get it taken care of. While it was challenging, it also, it's now coming together pretty easily. So
good.
So anyway, so
that's the week, and we hope you have a great week, and that this forecast sort of helps prepare you to understand the flow of it. And what do you think, LeKross? Do you have any questions or comments you want to add?
Well, I found it interesting. It seems like it's a lot of, some things are easy, but it seems like a lot of waves, like a lot of coming, going. And I'm going into, because we're still with the woodpecker, and I find it interesting that Woodpecker is the only one of few birds that actually has 2 claws in the front and 2 claws in the back to help them stabilize. And that's all I kept thinking were about with the ups and downs. I'm like, okay, take this time to stabilize yourself as the woodpecker does, because it's going to feel like the way it sounds, it feels like it's going to feel like a really rocky or wavy week, but it really isn't, if that makes any sense. If you're stabilized, it's not going to be as bad as you think it is. And I think this is a time of like a lot of self-love, a lot of self-caring has to be priority to make it through that. You know, one of the biggest relationship you can have is the one you have with yourself. We could talk about relationships till the cows come home, but that is the key and most important relationship. So I think this week looks like have that relationship with yourself. Even if you're in a relationship, you can still have a relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's, I don't know, that's kind of the feel I'm getting. Just hook on, hold on. And when you're pecking your little hole, remember they don't take more than they have to. They peck out what they need, and that's it. So I just focus on you this week, because I think that's going to be key.
Well said.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with Venus and Leo. Sometimes they say, like, Leo's opposite Aquarius, and Aquarius is we, and Leo is me. So they're opposite, right, of each other, and that's really why. Because Leo tends to be more focused on ourselves, and that's okay. You gotta love yourself. You gotta. Like RuPaul always says, how you gonna love somebody else? You don't even love yourself.
Exactly.
Drag verse.
The
importance.
Right. Hey, I mean, I'm not the biggest RuPaul fan, really, but I appreciate that wisdom.
True.
All right, fantastic. So as we go through with our cards, let me pin, maybe. No, that won't work. Nope. All right, so just so we can see the cards, make them a little bit bigger for you. This is the card in the past. This is a devil card. It's really about temptations, okay? It's not about evil. That's weird. I won't get into that conversation right now. But essentially, the devil is just about temptation. It's about the things that we're tempted to do that don't always align with our greatest well-being. And that's really what this is about. This is about what are you about the temptations, maybe that you've handled or tempted, and maybe you've dove deep into them. Who knows? And it just depends on your own experience. But this is about the temptations that you've had to deal with in the past and how that relates to you, especially in the here and now, in relation to the King of Pentacles, which is very much about having everything you need, having all the resources you need, and being the king of your world, having all the things that all your resources in check, having them well invested or well placed. And that's really what the King of Pentacles is about in the here and now, and recognizing that while, you know, you may have had some temptations in the past, now your life is pretty in order. And as you're going forward in life, Spirit is asking you to hold on to balance, justice, and that justice is always served in the end. So if you just keep the balance, it will always work out in the end. And, you know, this is something I sometimes have to talk to myself about, like in weight loss, for instance. If anyone else struggles with that, I'm sure there are people that struggle with it out there. If you just keep doing the right thing, it will work out. Okay, even though sometimes you're like, what? I gained a pound, and don't obsess over that. Just stay counting your calories, keeping it less, and exercising. Don't give up, and just keep doing the right thing. And eventually it will work out exactly as it was meant to. And I think that's really what the balance or justice card is about. It's about just keep yourself on the right path and it will work out. So even in our politics today, think about that. You can say, okay, well, if I just stay on course and stay doing the right thing, it will work out in the end. So so remember, in relation to your temptations in the past and the things that you were tempted to do that weren't exactly good for you, that's in relation to this, especially in relation to what you have now. You have everything you need. You have all your tools. You can do this. Just keep your integrity, because I also see the King of Pentacles. While he has all of his resources, he's also very integrous. Okay, he's a good king. He's the king that, he's the king that everybody, he's King Arthur. He's the king that everybody loves. Okay, and he always does the right thing and has his resources in the right place. And that's what this is all about. Okay, and going forward, make sure you hold your balance. Just keep doing the right thing and it will turn out the way it's supposed to in the end. And while this is a challenge, just keep going forward and hold your balance. This is about balance. So hold your balance in the future. The Justice card, in my opinion, yeah, it's about justice, but it's mostly about balance. That's why justice is represented by scales, because justice in its core is balance. And it's about the balance of right and wrong. It's about the balance of privileged and underprivileged, and finding a balance in that. Okay. And so that's really what this is about. And so hopefully you can tap into those cards today. And just speaking to our own journeys, I can hear those 3 cards speaking to my journey
Really
right now.
profoundly, yeah.
Really in a big way.
Yeah.
Just because, I've been struggling with weight, and I'm not afraid to say that, because I'm not the only one. I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle with that. It's not an easy thing to struggle with. It's just not easy. And it's not even about eating bad food anymore. Now it's just my body just
Hormones.
So and as we age, it becomes harder to lose weight. So always remember that. What I am grateful for is that way back in my Saturn returns, when I really became aware that weight was a serious problem for me. I was actually 50 pounds heavier than I am now. So it was 100 pounds altogether that I lost. During that Saturn returns, I said to myself, it will be harder to lose weight when I'm 40 or 50 than it will be to lose weight now. So let's do it now. And I did. And I'm grateful, because if I had put on 50 pounds on top of what that was, I would be in really bad shape right now. And I understand if you are in that position. I totally understand. It's really hard. It's not easy managing weight or health as you get older. And that's the best advice I've ever taken, is to manage it early on rather than waiting. Don't wait. If you're seeing it, do something about it now. So, and we all comes in different shapes and sizes, and some of us are big and some of us are small, and that's just the reality of it. So, and that's another thing, body image is a thing. And I think there's also something to be said about trying to keep a healthy weight. So, yeah. And whatever you're might be having to have balance in, whatever that is, finances or whatever else, hold your balance. This week should be pretty easy. Be like the woodpecker, dig your claws in and hold on, right?
Yeah.
Wish you all the very best. I hope you have a great week.
Absolutely. And please make sure to subscribe, comment, like, anything you can do to help promote the podcast. And thanks for watching Rainbow Soul, where we try to be a bridge between you and the stars.